Hey, dude, with the ice storm coming up, I figured I'd get on here and talk a little bit about what you can do if you have a heat pump, which, probably 80% of the systems around here are heat pumps. At least the vast majority, anyway, at least in the Statesville area. If you got a gas furnace or an oil furnace, there's nothing really you're going to have to do. They're all in some kind of conditioned space for the most part, and as long as we have power, they should operate. But that is an important tip. Just because you have a gas furnace or an oil furnace, that does not mean if the power goes out that you're going to have heat. Power goes out, you lose your gas furnace, you lose your oil furnace. That's not going to help you at all. It will allow you to run it on a generator if you can manage that. But you got to have a power source for ignition, the blower motor, and all that good stuff. Now, a heat pump's a little bit different because we got an outside unit. The fan spins. It's drawing that cold, wet moisture into it. You got louvers in the grills, louvers where the fan blows the air out. So anytime we get any kind of cold rain, they're real prone to freezing up and causing them louvers to go shut. It can cause damage to the fan blade, and it's just a mess. And there's nothing your defrost cycle can do about it. It's just going to have to happen and run its course, so to speak. So with the ice coming in, about the best thing you can do, the best recommendation would be before it even starts, I would recommend maybe turning your heat pump on and maybe getting the house a little warmer than you usually get it. It's much easier to keep the heat in, and by preheating your home, it'll hold that heat a little bit longer. Now if we were out power for a few days, it ain't really gonna matter too much. But for the first day or so, it might help you ride out that time if we don't lose power, that you're without your heat pump if you follow my recommendations. The second thing you can do, into which I would advise you to try this first, you can turn your emergency heat on. If you look at your thermostat, you ought to have an option to do emergency heat. Sometimes it might say aux heat, but just flip it to that. And when that happens, your heat pump's not going to run, but your heaters will. Now, here's the catch with that. Depending on what the original contractor put in, this is why I'm saying you ought to try it out first. It may or may not have enough electric heat to keep your house warm. If your contractor just put in a little bit of supplemental heat to help with the heat pump when it gets cold, and to knock that chill off when the defrost cycle comes on, and you got 5 kW on a 3-ton system, well, the chances are it's not going to do you much good, unfortunately. But now if you got 10K, 15 kW heaters, it'll probably be enough to ride it out without your heat pump. That way you can turn it off, wait for the rain to stop, and ride it out with your emergency heat. Now, if you got a meat thermometer, what you could do is just take the room temperature and then stick it in a supply vent. And as long as you got, if the electric heat, you expect it to be hot. So I'd say at least a 25 to 30 degree difference of electrical heat versus your room temperature versus what's coming out of the supply, and it's probably adequate. But if you're below 20 degrees on that electric heat, difference between your room temperature versus the supply, it's probably going to struggle, and you're probably going to have to rely on your heat pump running as well. So try to run your emergency heat, test it before the rain hits, is what I'm getting at. After the rain stops, if you are able to run it without the heat pump and on emergency heat, as soon as the rain stops, go outside, take a look at your outside unit. If it's covered in ice, then you're gonna have to de-thaw it. The best way to do that is with water. Go fill you up a pot of water, or if you're gonna do what I'm gonna do tonight, take your water hose inside so it don't get stiff and frozen. You could also hook it up to a water hose and just, spray it down, get the ice off of it. That water's gonna melt that ice like butter. Once all the ice is off and it's not restricted on the louvers around the coil and on top where the fan is, you're safe to turn it back on if we have power. If for some reason you're going to run your heat pump, you're just going to have to be mindful of any odd noises. If things start to freeze up and you start to hear ice clanking around on the fan blades. You can also, which I don't love this idea, kind of do it at your own discretion. I'm thinking I might try it myself. If you got like a pop-up tent or some kind of temporary shelter you can put over your heat pump, you want it to be tall. You want a good at least 5 foot above the fan. But as long as the winds ain't bad and we can keep the water from getting to it in the first place, hopefully that'll save the heat pump from freezing up like that. Now, the problem with this is two things. Number one, you run the risk of recirculating that cold air through that condensing unit, which I don't love. But at least at that point, it's going to lower your efficiency and your defrost cycle can handle the ice. The second thing, which I'm worried about, why I'm saying, really do it at your own discretion, is it is ice. If that canopy can't hold the weight, you run a chance of ruining your pop-up tent. That's probably my biggest concern with that idea. But if you got a cheap one somewhere and you don't mind ruining the thing, that might be something you could try. Just anything to try to keep that cold water off that condensing unit. But anyway, hopefully everyone will have power and this will pass. That's the hope anyway, but if it doesn't, once power's restored, if anything's wrong and not working properly, just give us a shout. We'll come out and assess the situation. One thing I will mention though, because I know I did touch on the gas furnace not being a problem. If you've got a 90% furnace where you got PVC pipes coming out and they're coming out your wall, a lot of times you're supposed to put bird screen in there. It's just a wire mesh you cut out, put in there. I've seen some people take like a plumbing vent, which I don't recommend, and putting it in there too. But it is possible that could freeze up and cause problems with your gas furnace if it's a 90% or high efficiency. As far as how to tell, if you got a high efficiency furnace versus a standard gas furnace, you're really going to have to go look at the furnace. You have to put your eyes on it. And your furnace could be under the house, it could be in the attic. Hopefully it's in a mechanical room. But your 80% furnaces have a metal flue pipe, the exhaust pipe, and your high efficiencies have a PVC pipe for the exhaust. So that's the best way to tell the difference. Now, if you have a gas pack, they're all low efficiency. Probably not going to have any trouble with ice forming and stopping them. But if it is a high efficiency furnace, especially with all the rain we're getting, it is sometimes possible that those screens will accumulate ice and freeze up and choke the exhaust and throw a fault code. But anyway, this post was mainly for heat pumps. If you got any questions, feel free to message me. I'll answer as many as I can. And y'all stay safe.